Hello everybody, this is AK. I'm back. So this is possibly my last video for a while, right? I've been making a lot of videos recently, right? Daily uploads, and I did warn in one of those videos that this is not the new normal. That I was able to do this because I've been resting my injured foot at home, right? So there might not be any videos in June, or if I do make videos in June, then maybe there'll be just like 1 or 2 a week, right? So this video, this so-called final video, in this video I want to talk a bit about how I've obtain some new ideas, right? Because I'm known for my ideas on CPF and passive income, right? And that's what gained me a huge following in my years as a blogger, and also now in my YouTube channel. And for those of you who are more observant, you'll know that whenever I talk about Alibaba or Bitcoin or World of Warships, my videos don't get very high viewership. Yeah, because people who are more interested in passive income and CPF, I suppose they're not all that interested in Alibaba, which has a very low dividend yield, and they are not very interested in Bitcoin, which is red poison or very speculative, right? And of course, they are probably not very interested in gaming as well, right? So, but you notice how I have obtained new ideas, right, in recent times, right? Bitcoin almost 3 years ago, and Alibaba I started buying in December last year, right? And this shows you that AK is not immutable. I can change, right? But still, I'll never move away from the CPF, and I'll never move away from investing for income, because I am still at heart very kiasu at kiasi, right? Right. I'm still very conservative, but I don't mind a dash of adventure now and again, right? So imagine if you were to put $100,000 in a certain asset, and let's say 20 years later it goes up by 100 times, which means that 20 years later it goes up by 100 times, which means it'll be what, $10 million. $100,000 become $10 million, right? I'm saying that because that's what some projection puts Bitcoin at 20 years from now. And there could be many things that happen along the way that makes that a possibility, right? And then if we think about 5 years later, 2030, right? If we there's this lady called Kathy Woods who thinks that Bitcoin would be $1.5 million by the year 2030, and she recently revised it to $2.4 million to take into account the wider acceptance of Bitcoin, right, in recent times. And when I went to do more research into her claims, I saw that the ETFs that are into Bitcoin these days have already made up 1% of all funds under management in the world. This was unthinkable in the past, right? And this sum is almost as much as ETFs which are holding gold, real gold, not digital gold like Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is now a rival to gold, right? Because Bitcoin is being looked at as digital gold, right? So like I've said, I buy the Bitcoin and gold because I value insurance, having insurance in my life, and these are good insurance against flawed fiat currencies, right? And Bitcoin scarcity is real. Fiat currencies you can keep printing non-stop, and that's what we are seeing in the world, right? So Bitcoin will hold its value, that's what I'm saying, right? And if there's wider acceptance of something that's very scarce, then for sure the price is going to go up, right? And so imagine if we have some spare cash, and we are very conservative like I am, and I put 1% of my portfolio in Bitcoin. And that 1%, like I've said in the previous video, if I lose it, I lose it. But if it should go up, like I think it should, then 20 years later is worth $10 million, or 5 years later is worth $1.5, $2.4 million. And if we are not thinking of it as insurance, and we just want to trade and make some money, Tom Lee from Fundstrat thinks that by end of the year, Bitcoin will be like $200,000. Of course, these are just price projections by experts. I'll take it with a pinch of salt. Personally, I'm not really bothered because I think of this as insurance. I'm holding long term, and long term, I think Bitcoin's price will only go up, right? And long term, Bitcoin's price will only go up. Like I've said, there'll be dips, there'll be crashes along the way. Bitcoin is very volatile, right? And so if you are very short term, when it comes to Bitcoin and you want to trade Bitcoin, then you should learn how to read the charts. You should learn technical analysis, right? Bitcoin right now seems to be retracing. The price seems to be retracing, so it might come back down to test some supports. I see that levels at $97,000, $93,000, $87,000. All those are possible support levels for Bitcoin to retrace to and to test. I'm talking about US dollars, right? So, I mean, like Bitcoin crashed all the way to $75,000 earlier in the year after hitting $100,000, if I remember correctly. So like 25% retracement. So these such big movements in Bitcoin they are quite normal, right? But the long-term trend, I believe, is up. So if, and I've said before that Bitcoin is not something that all of us absolutely must have, right? For people who are of more modest means, or people who are just starting out as investors, they don't have so much excess cash, then they want to keep their feet firmly on the ground and avoid the more speculative assets, right? And despite all the things I've said, right, about how Bitcoin could be a good hedge and stuff like this, it is a speculative asset, right? So we are speculating that things could go very wrong in the world, right? We might have World War III, financial system meltdown and all that kind of stuff. Then you can see Bitcoin's price shooting through the roof, right? So insurance is by its nature a bit speculative. We buy insurance not with the hope that we will get to claim the benefits. We buy insurance and hope that we never have to claim the benefits. All right, so insurance by its nature is pretty speculative, but we buy in case something bad were to happen. Right? In case something bad were to happen, then we will be glad we have insurance. And that's how I look at Bitcoin. But people who are a bit more creative can think of how maybe if $100,000 in Bitcoin today becomes $10 million 20 years later, that could help fund my retirement. That's creative thinking, right? And that's not wrong, right? We'll know whether it's right or wrong 20 years later. Or 5 years later, whether Bitcoin goes to 1.5 or $2.4 million, we'll know 5 years later, right? But I'm just saying that, don't be too narrow-minded. Right. If I believe what Charlie Munger says is rat poison, I would never have touched Bitcoin. Right. I decided to do some reading on my own, do some thinking on my own. So just do independent thinking. Don't listen to anyone and think that is the holy grail, that is the gospel truth. Right. And arrive at your own conclusion. And if you decide that a bit of Bitcoin doesn't hurt your portfolio, yep. Why not? And if you still, after the research, you still think that it's rat poison, well, avoid it at all costs. When in doubt, stay out, right? So this is my final video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Remember, I'm just talking to myself, not giving any financial advice. If AK can talk to himself, so can you. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.